Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone, and it's caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown! IND1!
A 43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Galloway drives all the way to the hole, throws it up, got it! Indiana's got their first lead of this contest.
I mean, that's a goddamn winner right there.
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, high atop the 18th fairway. On this Wednesday, it's November 15th. Hope you're having a good start to your day. And if not, we're going to try to make it better. Hello to everybody listening on all of our affiliates on 97.7 ESPN The Rep down in Evansville. AM 1230, 104.7 FM WJOB, the voice of the region. And over in Fort Wayne on 1380 The Fan. Make sure you tune in for Caleb and Kenny each morning. They are giving away a 4-pack of tickets to the Indiana-Michigan State football game this weekend. And, of course, right afterwards, you have the Sports Rush. How's everybody doing? Good to see. Starting my day off with last night I was just eating. I just got in from the airport, and first thing I wanted to do was eat, and I just made a salad. And I was going through that thing like it was my last meal, I guess. But you know how you bite your tongue. I didn't really bite my tongue. I thought I scraped it somehow, but I dug a little chunk out. Boy, that's a tough place to fix. Even when I talk, I can feel it flicking around.
Well, that just sounds, I know we were talking about that before the show, but that just sounds like, I don't know, something out of a horror movie, biting a piece of your tongue off. You know what I mean?
Well, I didn't bite it off. It's still there.
Yeah.
But
it's just a little chunk came out. And it was probably a tiny little chunk, but still.
No, it just laid it forward like a little smile. And I'm like, how do you do that? How's that possible? And because it's not like it's on the edge. It doesn't seem physically possible, but man, oh man. And then had to just took a rag, a hand towel rag, and got it wet and put some ice in it and shove that in there and just try to lay it on my tongue for the next hour. But man, oh man, I guess there's worse problems to have. How's everybody doing? Appreciate everybody jumping on early and often on the Andy Moore Honda hotline. Fred, Kent from Mount Pleasant, Michigan. Dwayne down in the southern part of the state. John from Southern Brown County. Mike's on. Hello, Pete. Gritty points out the Hoosiers Connect had a great fundraising day yesterday. That was Are You In from Indiana? We'll have Tyler on some point to talk about that. Las Vegas Larry, how are you, sir? I am, Fred. I am back. 5 Lefts, Forrest, and everyone else, we appreciate you very much. Hope you're having a great day. But yeah, yesterday was the Hoosiers Connect. It was their first of their type. They did an all-day podcast type thing. And they had an anonymous donor that would match everything that came in. And again, just so you know, Hoosiers Connect is when you see a recruit, anything to do with their NIL, it's coming from Hoosiers Connect. So they are a gigantic source for Indiana athletes, especially those like Mackenzie Mbako, who having little problems getting it started this year. But hopefully he gets that turned around. Mike Woodson is dealing with it as a old school coach would. And I dig it. You know, a lot of coaches would have him out there regardless. And I like the fact that Mike Woodson says, no, this is how it is, and this is how it's going to be. And that I don't, a kid can go one of two ways. I shouldn't say a kid, but you're either going to respond and go after it, or you're going to sit and pout. And I would think that most would respond in an affirmative way and accept that challenge. Cheryl says she responding to Robert first. Robert, after watching the MSU Duke and Kansas, Kentucky, do you feel better or worse about the Hoosiers? Cheryl says she's a little concerned, but she has faith in Woody and the staff. Fred says IU has a lot of wood to chop. Well, I can tell you, it's definitely not the same level of team that those teams are on. They looked much more advanced. Their players were ready for the fight, so to speak. They were all in. They were attacking. It was entertaining. I don't know that Indiana is there yet. I'm a little curious as to why. I know there are new faces, but it doesn't matter to me. Hello, Fozad. That should just be natural. And it's like they're having to work at it. And I don't understand that aspect of it. I guess that some don't realize the depth of effort you have to give. CJ Gunn and Caleb Banks also called out by Mike Woodson that he needs more from them. And I think that I think those guys will work hard to respond in that. But Indiana, offensively, after watching those teams last night, yeah, I think it leaves a little bit to be afraid of when you're going up against a team like UConn. I know they have Wright State on Thursday, and that is their last quote-unquote get-right game, not to be, no pun intended. I don't know that one game is going to do it. But if anything is going to be a wake-up call, it could be the UConn game for this team as they look right now. Bozich says Mackenzie Mbako will score at least 10 against Wright State and will have his breakout game against UConn. Pencil it in. Well, that would make Indiana fans, they would be just fine with that. Maybe it is something like that. Maybe he needs the big stage or the big lights, but you would think Assembly Hall would do that. But maybe the challenge of playing against someone like that does it. And for you Indiana fans, I hope that happens. But we'll certainly find out. Herbal says Indiana's definitely behind schedule. He'd feel better if Mbako had a good game tonight against Wright State. Yeah, there's no question about that. You need to get him on track. He has got to get on track. And it's not to say that can't happen or just hasn't happened in the days of practice in between. But we will certainly find out. How's everybody else doing? How's your day going? What's new for you? What did you think of those games last night? Just in and of the games themselves. I mean, you want to talk about an early season matchup. Doesn't get much better than that, in addition to the Maui invitation that's coming. But that's a pair of basketball games right there. But Hunter Dickinson looked very, very, very comfortable for Kansas. 27 points, 21 rebounds as they beat Kentucky 89-84. And Kentucky did not look bad. That's a high-scoring game right there, people. That is a high-scoring game. And I know Woody keeps saying that he is, when they've been in the 60s, is thinking that's a place where we want to be. Is it? Because unless you're going to be able to hold the other teams to 40, Indiana's going to have to start having more offensive output. And I've heard him talk about things like not running enough, that they're not getting out. Well, why? I mean, to me, that should happen one time as not happening, one time in a game and go. I'm a little confused by the fact that they're not doing it. If this is how they practice all summer, why all of a sudden are you not doing that? Or did you practice that way all summer? By watching those games, you see the talent deficit between, I think, Indiana and these other teams. And it comes down to recruiting. Indiana is just not there yet. But we've got to take a break. More coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Appreciate you being with us. Make sure you go to AndyMoreHonda.com to get more to your door. We're back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market.
Hey, do you want me to message Kyle and see if he wants to come on a segment early? We don't have to.
No.
I just didn't know if that would make anything easier for you.
I tried to get Todd. He can't. He's at the damn doctor. But I should try to. Todd Golden.
Golden.
I meant to text him, see if he can come on possibly. I was hoping Todd would be able to, but man, it feels like that piece is just kind of moving. That's what sucks. It feels weird.
Oh, I'm sure it's weird, yeah.
Hunter Dickinson.
You know, if Louisville beats Miami this weekend, they'll be in the ACC championship.
Well, I mean, I knew that that's where they were headed because they haven't lost.
It's just wild that they've been able to have this good of a season as they've had. I mean, I know Jeff Brom's a good coach and they have a fairly easy schedule, but I didn't think they'd be able to be consistently winning. And man, their only losses to probably one of the worst damn teams in their schedule. They very well could be undefeated.
Yeah,
lose to freaking Pittsburgh,
and they could have lost to Indiana.
And I've thought about that. I'm like, they were inches away from potentially losing to Indiana. And man, that could have taken their season a totally different turn if they lost that game. All right, here we go.
3 for just $299. That's right. Play as many rounds as you like for just $299. That's better than a birdie. But you don't have to be a student to play at Eagle Point. Go online to set your tee time or call 812-824-4040. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by The Chop Shop, home of the Indiana football and men's basketball coaches shows. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Wednesday. Appreciate you being with us. No matter how you're listening on radio or following us on YouTube, which you can do simply by going to Indiana Sports Beat Radio at Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and hit the when you do that, make sure you hit the subscribe button and like button and notifications toggle and all that good stuff, so you don't miss a bit, like post game shows, which will be coming up on pretty much all of the basketball games, except for if it's a 9 o'clock game. That ain't happening. I can tell you that. Herbal says his personal disagreement with Woody is his lack of focus on perimeter shooting. Well, I get what you're saying, except for who's that shooter going to be? They don't have that guy. They don't have a knockdown three-point shooter. Now, they've got guys that can hit. And Mackenzie Mbako is supposed to be that guy. But I think it's other things that have kept him out of the game, particularly his lack of defensive awareness. Indiana has – the only reason these games have been close is because Indiana has not been able to make their switches, make their adjustments, and get back out on and close out three-point shooters. And if that continues, that could be ugly. You have guys that, for those other teams, that can drain them. And if given the opportunity, they will do just that. So, Wright State is their last quote-unquote get-right game. We'll see whether or not they have made changes, whether they have made differences. Bob asking, how old is Hunter Dickinson now? 44. When's he going to graduate? Well, he's actually just a junior, I believe. He was only at Michigan for 2 years, right? He may leave after this season. But how about this? Out in the Pac-12, a state judge in Washington has granted Oregon State and Washington State sole control over the Pac-12 of the Pac-12's board of directors Tuesday, issuing the ruling as a preliminary injunction hearing in Whitman County. Judge Gary Libby granted a stay of the decision until Monday at no objection from OSU and Washington State, as the 10 schools leaving the Pac-12 following this year initiate the appeals process. The decision comes roughly 2 months after Libby granted a temporary restraining order at the request of Ohio State, Washington State, that prevented Pac-12 Commissioner George Klavikoff from calling any Pac-12 board meetings. So, got a little power play action going on out there. These two are saying, fine, if you guys want to leave, you leave, and you leave it all. That could be that could be a financial boon for those guys. But we'll see how that turns out. That's going to be very interesting, but it's so odd as the Pac-12 is the most dominant conference in football this year. But we'll let that figure itself out in the courts. Fred says last night Kentucky made 12 three-pointers. Kansas versus Kansas, and Kansas hit 6 threes. Kansas won. You never know about the 3. It's not the fact that Indiana is not shooting. I don't care that they shoot a ton of 3s. But they have to guard the 3. You have to defend the 3. You cannot allow a team to put up 36 shots from behind the arc, especially if they're decent at hitting those. Especially when you move up in talent, because you're going to have much more talented players around the rim, where that has not been the case thus far with Indiana. It's much easier for men like Khalil Ware and really Malik, I can't even speak today, Malik Renew to do more damage underneath. But this is a step up. They got bigger boys that they're going to have to deal with in those types of games. Draymond Green is back at it. He's a big supporter of Trace Jackson Davis. I hope he doesn't follow in his footsteps. But the NBA's in their in-season tournament, which that part's kind of cool. But in the game between the Warriors and the Timberwolves, it got off to a fiery start Tuesday night as Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and Jaden McDaniels were ejected for their roles in a fight less than 2 minutes into the game, with Green putting Minnesota center Rudy Gobert in a headlock. I think Klay Thompson came off the top rope. No, I'm kidding about that part. The Warriors were already without Stephen Curry. They would lose that game, but I just find that funny. Putting someone in a headlock. Nuts. Roy McIlroy has resigned from the as the player director on the PGA Tour Policy Board. He was one of the most vocal supporters of it during its battle with LIV Golf. I think he's still not happy with the marriage that they made. Said he was blindsided by the PGA Tour's controversial decision on June 6th to enter into a framework agreement to form a partnership with Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund and the DP World Tour. He had been a loud critic of the breakaway LIV Golf Tour, which is being funded by Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund. McElroy was not informed of the framework agreement until a few hours before it was announced by Monahan. So he gone. Everybody makes a decision about money, man. There is nothing left to that's done with morals and all of that. But Kansas barely beat Kentucky with that performance by Hunter Dickinson, which was a hell of a performance against a good team. That's a team Indiana's going to have to play, Kansas. That's a guy that's going to be coming into the Simon Scott Assembly Hall. And I'm sure he's going to get a round of boos, but let me tell you, he probably will feed off of that. I mean, he probably feels more confident right now than he ever has, with good reason. He's got a lot more talent around him than he ever has. And I think not just having him, but having him makes Kansas the undisputed favorite for the national championship as of this moment, which is only 5 months away. So my point there being a lot of basketball to be played. They're not going to go undefeated. But he pumped his fist after he made clutch shots. He chirped at the crowd. He talked trash to his opponents during their victory over Kentucky. So it is going to be a fiery environment when Kansas comes to Bloomington. And it'll probably take everything that the Indiana fans have to get under his skin. I don't know if that's possible, but that's a hell of a night. 27 points, 21 rebounds, both career highs, and a Champions Classic record. He also added 3 steals. He also made the case that reigning Wooden Award winner Zach Edey will have a serious competitor in the National Player of the Year race. Yeah, you always wonder, well, who can beat him? There's a reason that only one player has ever won that award in back-to-back seasons, Ralph Sampson of Virginia. And one would think it would come to you naturally that Zach Edey, well, you know, he's back. He's better than ever. Who's going to beat him? Bam. You put a player in a different place, but he's also a year older. He's also way more, I don't want to say talented, but he is much more versatile. Like him or not, Hunter Dickinson is a bad man. He can shoot shots from outside. He can battle inside. He can block. He can steal. He can play defense. And obviously rebound. This is not, Zach Edey does not have those traits. Zach Edey, and I'm not knocking him, but he was just Mount Edey, and no one could move him last year, and he is like robotic. But I don't know. He would not be the number 1 draft. Obviously, he was not even, he didn't go to the NBA last year because where was he on the draft boards? I promise you, Hunter Dickinson will be a high draft pick. A lot of times that's dependent upon what a team needs, but that marked the first time a Kansas player registered 20 points and 20 rebounds against a ranked opponent since 2003. So He's doing things that have not been done there at Kansas. But it was his play that changed that game. And Reed Shepherd, how about that for Kentucky? That kid looked really good. 13 points, 3 of 4 from behind the 3-point line. Indiana's got Gabe Cupps. Reed Shepherd's a year older, and I think that they're really good friends, as a matter of fact. I'm virtually positive they are. But Kentucky is doing something also they have never done. They just signed or accepted a commitment from, I think, the all-time leading scorer in Kentucky now. They've got Reed Shepherd, whose dad, Jeff Shepherd, played for Kentucky, and he's actually a Kentucky kid. Their rosters are usually built on guys from everywhere else. Kentucky looks good. I'm not sure they're good enough, but they're a really good team. Kentucky's Adu Thero said it was just difficult to stop Dickinson. He's only going to get better. I mean, Hunter Dickinson is he's a man. So that is going to be that's going to be a loud Simon Scott Assembly Hall. But that's going to be a very interesting game when they come in. Indiana is going to have to make some improvements. Who's going to guard Dickinson? I mean, I think there'll be a lot of switching off, but Khalil Ware is going to have to – Indiana's going to have to pick up their defensive intensity. John Boy's telling me it's time for a break, and we'll do just that. We've got more Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming up. Kyle Neddenriep's going to join us in the next hour, as is Rick Bozich. Looking forward to hearing from both of them. And we'll be back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Let's see. Tomorrow is Thursday, so you have what time is that game?
7. Well, hold on. Never mind. That might not be true. I think it's 7, but I was actually thinking of tonight's Louisville game that I have to take care of.
Is that the basketball game you're talking about?
That's what you're talking about, right? Indiana basketball?
Sure.
They play tomorrow at 7, yes.
All right. When's the damn soccer team play?
Let's take a look. Let's see if I can find that. Never mind. I saw it the other day, but I can't think of it. Let me see if I can
how about the Pacers? It's a huge win. I forgot to talk about that. I wrote it down. Tyrese Halliburton.
Indiana plays at 6 tomorrow.
That is versus Lipscomb.
It is.
Well, let me go over there for a little bit first.
Busy night in Bloomington.
Oh, my God. Are you kidding me?
This is more than just football, basketball crossover. You got soccer crossover now, too.
Well, it happens every year. That's what makes this time of year
insane.
Oh, God. Yeah, it's rough. Yeah, Kentucky, that's the thing that makes you – Kentucky's a good team, Daniel. This was not a runaway win by Kansas by any stretch of the imagination. 5 laps pointing out, Kentucky was missing 3 big men in that game.
Well, they're also missing a lot of them for most of the season because they got hurt during their Canadian trip. Aaron Bradshaw and what's the other guy's name? Ugo.
Well,
That's
you
not
need to
his
be out here
actual name.
talking to me about you get to hear all that Kentucky stuff down there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you weren't really talking about the big men stuff, and I didn't
Well, I
really
didn't
have any.
know.
I didn't watch
I
last
don't
night's game. I
follow
was
it.
actually I was at a concert last night.
Of course you were. Where
I was
at
Mercury
was
Ballroom.
wait a minute, boy, I can't even be quick enough to think of that joke.
You wouldn't know who it is. It's
I know,
rock
but I
from
was
the
gonna.
to the 2010s.
What do you mean, like a
Like
band?
they're a fairly young band. They're not like old. They're like, I guess they're middle aged by this point, but they began in the mid to late 2000s. Band called Pop Evil.
What? There is a player that Renata's husband was telling her about, still in college at 26. It's his 8th year, Seth Towns.
Wow. All right, here we go. We just got a few seconds until we come back. We quote you just for catering or a total event package. You can trust that you're making the right choice with Garnish Catering. Visit garnishcatering.com. That's garnishcatering.com. Garnish Catering is a proud partner of Wow Food Group. This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indie Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Wednesday, November 15th. That blows my mind. We're halfway through November. Halfway through November, people. And no, you cannot put up your Christmas decorations yet.
I thought you were so we had this conversation a few weeks ago, and last time you seemed like obviously you're not the kind of person who's going to do it immediately, and neither am I, but you didn't seem like it was a problem if other people chose to do so.
This is all you're going to see here, and it's on the ground still.
See, I see ornaments on it, but if I didn't know any better, I wouldn't even know that was supposed to be a Christmas decoration.
Well, good. Oh man, I don't care what people do. Hey, you know what? If it makes you happy, go ahead. I
Is that
love the
Sheryl
people
Crow?
It is.
Okay, at least I knew that one.
You did. Yes. There are people that leave their stuff up all night, all year long.
There's a song about that too. I think that's either Gretchen Wilson or Shania Twain who sings that. I leave my Christmas lights on up my front porch all year long.
That
Can I get a round of applause?
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. That gives you an indication of why most people don't do that.
Yeah.
So what's the overall? You don't have what?
Oh, I'm here. I'm just you can't see me anymore.
Good point. What is the thought of people? Those of you that can respond on the, and John, we need to start taking those recorded line deals.
Well, yeah, definitely. So, and we'll have to set this up, and you may even have the number already, but if you want to start leaving us messages, we're going to put together a Google voicemail line where we can play your messages over the show, especially if you have specific questions about Indiana basketball or, what other sports you might be interested in. Obviously, we'll still always take your questions on the Andy Moore Honda hotline, but this voicemail line it can be really fun. It gets you a chance to put your voice over the air, if you will.
I wonder if I have a number that we could do it from already.
Well, there you go.
But I wonder if I should get another number.
You could if you wanted to, kind of separate them from whatever the other one is.
Yeah, but that's coming. That's coming. So we're going to do that. But what it will be is you'll call and you'll leave a voicemail, and with a question, a comment, or something if you're cracking on John. But
Oh yeah, and another thing
Just-
too. So
Just
whenever
kidding.
the
Just kidding.
voicemails
You
are
can
left,
crack on me.
whenever the voicemails, whenever you leave one, it leaves a transcript for us. So if you think you're going to be able to get away with saying something you're not allowed to say over the radio, you won't get away with it because
Well,
I'll
no,
be able to screen it beforehand. Well, I mean, some people will be like, "Oh, this is my chance to be a fool." That kind of.
We'll
thing.
be listening. No, dude, these are going to be listened to before they're put on. I promise you.
Oh, of course, but we got to let the listeners know that just so they're aware.
Hit up some of these comments before we get too deep because there are a ton of them. And thanks to all of you. Let's see. Robert's saying that Wisconsin and Illinois is getting their butts handed to them. Let's see. Herbal says worse. Indiana is definitely behind schedule. Oh yeah, that was earlier. Fozon checking in. Mentioned him earlier. He says that oh yeah, the breakout. Fred says that it appears team chemistry is not up to par. Would be great if they could do a European trip next term or something. You know what? I'm not sure, and I'm not disagreeing with that, but I'm not seeing that it's a time issue with these guys. That's one detriment of the portal. You get so many different guys that come in and maybe have their own agenda. I'm not saying that's the case, but you have to be on the right page. And that page is to be a sponge, to learn, to absorb, to do whatever your coach asks you to do, tells you that you need to do. Yanka says that McKenzie will play better. Well, we know he's a Todd Leary has come on here and said he's one of the best shooters that Indiana's brought in decades. And I don't doubt what Todd Leary says. Todd does not throw out those kind of compliments. He throws out the truth. And we've seen that McKenzie can shoot, and it's not his shooting that's missing. It's his defensive play, apparently. And the assignments and listening and these guys, and it's I think it's just all out effort. They're not giving an all out effort. That it's like they're giving a courtesy. If there's a switch and a guy has to get back out on a 3-point shooter, it's like it's a courtesy. I'm gonna act like I'm making an effort and raise my hand up and just throw it. Man, you got to get up in these guys' face. That's the difference between the old man-to-man defense where you're just on them, man. I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing casual defense right now, personally. It's what I call casual defense. You need to be up in that jersey. I mean, your head should be coming out of their jersey. I'm not seeing that from Indiana. And when you're not doing that, that is not a good sign to me of a team that is really ready to win, that is desiring to win. It's not about offense. It's not about getting a dunk. It's not about knocking down a three. It's about playing defense. Defense leads to offense. Defense leads to fast breaks. Fast breaks lead to points. Fast breaks lead to opponent defensive breakdowns. There's just so many things this Indiana team is not doing right now. And yes, it's early in the season, but I keep thinking June, July, August, September, October. What is it called? 5 months? They've been playing together for 5 months. Why? I don't understand why this is just being noticed. Partly because you're playing against walk-ons and your own team members. Well, Indiana's defense has not been up to snuff. So guess what? They haven't been. That means the team during the summer, they weren't being pushed hard enough. I could be wrong as rain. Ed thinks Kentucky looks impressive without their 7-footers. I agree. And John, who all have they lost for the year, you said? I mean, that's
well,
a lot
I
to
don't know
lose.
this for fact, but I do know, I don't know the exact time limit for fact, but Aaron Bradshaw, he was a 5-star recruit for this past year, and Ugo, that's his nickname for Ugana and Yenso. I don't know his timeline either, but I believe he's a sophomore. Those are two big guys they've had out of the rotation for a little while.
Five Less says he thinks that Galloway may have to come off the bench and Gabe will have to start. Okay, well, what does that do? I'm not disputing that, but I'm wondering what does that bring Indiana? Now, I will say this, that somebody somehow agrees with it. And I know you got Trey Galloway's a fan favorite. I think that he is a decent basketball player. But if he were on Kansas, Kentucky, UConn, any of those teams, would he be starting at the 2 spot? Would he be starting, period? Ask yourself that. Any of the top teams, would he be starting? Now you start to gauge where Indiana is. They're just, they are, the talent is just different. And that is going to have to continue to change with recruiting. And recruiting, I mean, everybody is jacked up because they got Liam McNeely, but they don't have anybody else yet. So we'll see how that goes. Fred pointing out Florida Atlantic won their home opener 100-57 last night versus East Michigan. Students arrived 24 hours early to get seats. That is what is happening down in Florida with our buddy Dusty May. That's incredible to see. And that's what you should be doing. You should be beating those types of teams by 43. Caleb is not exactly thrilled about what he thinks will happen when Kansas comes to town. How about the Pacers last night, by the way? A huge 132-126 win over Philadelphia the night after. Was that the night after losing to them? Or was there a day in between that, John Boy? But regardless, they get to win. I mean, we'll have fun talking to Chris about that tomorrow. They're just, man, they're 7-4. That's Philadelphia's only second loss. Tyrese Halliburton with 33 points, 15 assists. It's a good night. Herbal says he thinks that Kalen DeBoer, rumored to be the leading candidate for the Texas A&M job. I'm not seeing that, but I If they offered it to him, that would have to be something to consider, because while he's being paid very well at Washington, I think around $6 million, they'll freaking double it. But you also double everything else. You double the expectations. You double down the time you have to meet those expectations. I don't know that he leaves Washington. I think he's happy out there. And they're moving into the Big Ten. He's going to get a raise. He's happy. I think he's happy living where he lives. And while they love their football at Washington, I don't know that it's not as much of a pressure-packed environment as that is at this already a moment. You would be walking into a pressure cooker. Kent pointing out Thanksgiving is only 8 days away. That is exactly right. That's hard to imagine. Philip thinks that I'm looking for my Taylor with Christmas music. No, not a Swiftie. I don't think I know a Swiftie song. John might.
Oh, you know a Swiftie song, but you might not listen to here's the thing. This Taylor Swift, and people may hate that I'm about to say this. In terms of cultural impact, there has not been an artist with that kind of impact on the music industry, in my opinion, since the Beatles. It's one of those things where you just hear a song and you know it's Taylor Swift. Whether you like it or not, you just know it's Taylor Swift.
Disagree.
Let's go to break on that note.
Elvis, a man. There was a man only known by one name, Elvis. I'll have a blue, 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 blue Christmas without you. Elvis, man. Up until the day he died, those women were swooning. He was giving out those sweaty neck, whatever the hell those things were. He put around his neck for a second, and he'd hand one out, and they kept bringing them out to him, and he'd hand one. That was his thing.
It's gross, if you ask me.
Wow. Not only did Tyrese Halliburton have the 25 and 15 assists, 0 turnovers. I didn't see that. Man. Daniel said he watched the 81 LSU game last night, and Indiana definitely needs the in-your-face defense to win games. There are too many good shooters who can knock down wide open shots all day, and that's exactly right. And when you leave them open, their percentage goes up. It's like shooting practice shots. And that's what it's supposed to be like. So, Indiana's going to have to do something different. We'll talk about that and more on the backside in the next hour. Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by Cheryl Sizemore. If you live in the Indianapolis area looking for a home, you need the 2 decades of experience Cheryl has. Reach out to her, Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market. Yeah, I thought that there was.
Wait, what, Jim? Day between which games?
The Pacers and Philadelphia.
Oh.
Because I think they played Monday because we talked about, no, I can't remember. Oh boy, yeah, football.
Look at all these people getting mad about my Beatles Taylor Swift comment.
Steven, you crack me up, man. It's not griping, my brother. It is pointing things out. But it's pointing things out that certain fans may not like to hear. But that does not make them any less true. We don't ignore things. I don't ignore things. When they're good, they're good. When they are what they are, they get talked about as they are. What who's griping, by the way? What am I griping about? Somebody please tell me. What am I griping about? I'm not a fan, brother. I don't have time to go down and get coffee, do
I? If you can do it in a minute and 10 seconds.
No, but what I can do is start it.
There you go.
It'll be done the next time.
All right, 30 seconds. Kyle should be on shortly.
Oh, wonderful.
Door Construction, now building exclusively south of Bloomington within the Stonecrest Golf community. Choose from one of the gorgeous Stonecrest Signature Series house plans. We have several lots available with scenic views of the golf course. Contact Amy Rhoda with Revesco Real Estate for additional information. 812-583-0919 or go to mystonecrestliving.com. That's mystonecrestliving.com for more details. This segment is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Wednesday. Thanks a lot for being with us. Cal Neddenriep from the Indy Star set to join us. Brought to you by our good friends at Reynolds Family Dentistry down in Sellersburg. If you're down that way, make sure you stop in and see Dr. J and keep that championship smile. Kyle, how are you doing, sir?
Doing well. How are you, Jim?
I cannot complain. It's a busy time of year for everybody, especially you, with basketball having started and the football playoffs deep into the run. It's how in football are things going according to plan? Has it been chalk? How's it been?
Yeah, I would say relatively. I mean, it's here and there. I guess you've had some upsets, but I think the game that everybody thought could happen, the Center Grove Ben Davis game this weekend, will be, we thought either Brownsburg or Ben Davis would play Center Grove. It turned, Ben Davis beat Brownsburg in a great game in the sectional, and now those, we'll see if Center Grove can keep their run going, going for number 4 and certainly capable of winning, but Ben Davis, at home, it's going to be tough. So, that's the, I think the one everyone kind of anticipated and has kind of held true to form. Westfield beating HSC last week, that surprised me a little bit. Even though Westfield beat them earlier in the season, I wondered if that would hold true again. And HSC was really talented. I thought that might be the team that could make it to Lucas Oil and play, either Center Grove or Ben Davis, but it didn't turn out that way. So Westfield, they're very good. This will be their third trip in 4 years if they can beat Crown Point this weekend. So, but yeah, I would say most of the, Lutheran in 1A, Chittard in 3A, East Central in 4A, the 6A teams we kind of thought were at the top. I mean, all of that is basically held true to form. 5A will have two different teams playing in the state finals. Valparaiso and Whiteland both got beat last weekend. So again, not a huge shock necessarily, but there will be a new champion. 5A is kind of a fun class to me because it's just sort of, you don't know who's going to win that one. That to me, Bloomington South's probably the best team. Maybe at least the best record and best stats and all that. So, but they played Decatur Central this week, and Decatur, before the year, they were my pick to go to the state finals, and they've played really, really well here lately. So that'll be a great game at Decatur Central this weekend too in 5A.
How about Fort Wayne Snyder making it to the next week on a 45-yard field goal as time expired? That sounds like a college or pro game there, man. That doesn't happen in high school very often at all.
No, I went back and watched that game too, and Mishawaka had just taken the lead with not much time left, and Fort Wayne Snyder, got a couple of reasonably big plays to even have they had a nice run by their quarterback to get in position to get that field goal off, and it's sort of like in high school, it's just such a crapshoot of what you get from your kicker. And if you got one who can kick a 45-yarder, obviously you're ahead of most teams where they're at. So, I mean, it was pretty amazing. It was very much in Mishawaka's kids, as you watch that, you felt for them because they were just, it was like a gut punch. I mean, they literally were on the field. As I watched the video, I mean, the video was still going and they were still just standing there kind of in disbelief. They had them beat, and Fort Wayne Snyder's a very good team. And they might've been again, they're in 5A too, and they might be the favorite to win it too. So that was just a crazy finish. And it looked like Mishawaka had the game won. They hit their own field goal there late to go ahead. And then they lose on a field goal. So that's similar. Ben Davis they had a 40-yard field goal with about 3 minutes left against Cathedral, and Ben Rudolph just drilled it right down the middle. And that's such a good, such a weapon. And you have clutch kickers like that, man. You're, like I said, it's not college or the NFL. You see those miss sometimes in at those levels. So if you have a high school kid who can kick a 45 yarder with the game on the line, that's something else.
Also Gibson Southern, how do they keep just reloading? I mean, they lose a incredible quarterback and they're right back at it as they'll be facing Heritage Hills this week.
Yeah, I covered their game Saturday. They played Saturday afternoon at Tri-West in the regional, so I went over there and covered that. And yeah, Brady Allen was actually there. I guess Louisville they played on a weeknight last week, so he was actually there to watch Gibson Southern play. Came up to watch it. And I was talking to him even before the game about that a little bit because 2 years ago, they played in the semi-state at Tri-West. I covered that game too, and they won 44-7, I think it was, and Brady Allen was everything you expected him to be. He was sensational. But this is sort of I actually kind of wrote about that on Saturday because this is sort of a team that doesn't have a star player like that, obviously, and but it's a team that also just has a lot of guys who have been part of that, winning at Gibson Southern, part of the kind of a pedigree of a program that's won a lot, and that carries over. Nick Hart, the coach there, he's John Hart's son, who coaches at Brownsburg now. Won at Warren Central and Evansville Rights, and so comes from a coaching family, but. He's done a really good job there. He's AD there too. I think he's been there 11 or 12 years now, and they just have a lot of good players. They seem to play their best. This time of year they were down 14-0 in that game to Tri-West and came right back and obviously did what they had to do and kind of won going away. They were definitely the better team on that afternoon. So, yeah, they'll play Heritage. It's really weird, that I don't know why it happened this way, but they play Tri-West in the regional and then go back down to play Heritage Hills in the semi-state, which is a team they play in their own conference. So that's kind of just the oddity of how it worked out. But that'll be a great game, too. I can't imagine how many people will be at that game. Heritage Hills is having a really good season. It was 31-28 this year when they played in the regular season. So it should be a great game. And I'd love to – I'll probably go back and watch some of that on video, but that should be phenomenal atmosphere.
And 4A is kind of working out the way it's supposed to, but New Pal has kind of had a resurgence. They were rolling a couple of years ago and winning state titles, and then they had a drop off. Obviously now they're back number 2, but they're taking on undefeated East Central, who is a defending state champion. So this ought to be a meeting of titans.
Yeah, it should be. I was out at New Pal Monday talking to Kyle Ralph, about some of that, and they're definitely underdogs. I think everyone will pick East Central to win, and rightly so. They're exceptional. Josh Ringer is, probably one of the, if not the favorite for Mr. Football. He's one of a handful of guys in that mix, and their quarterback Cole Burton's been around for a while, and Ryan Brotherton also. I watched this team in person a couple of years ago, and these guys were all sophomores at the time. And Ryan Brotherton is a receiver for them who doesn't get enough credit either. I think he's a Division I player. So they're loaded up. But yeah, New Pal, they're a team that, they're a program. Coming off last year, they lost to Roncalli in a close game in the regional round. And they lost a ton of, talking to Kyle Ralph about this, they lost, they were very feeling like this was sort of a rebuilding year in some ways, and rebuilding a New Pal has been different than other, their bottom line is pretty high, but they lost a ton and they were injured early on. They lost to Westfield and Decatur Central. And, as it turns out, both those teams in bigger classes are still playing. So not bad losses, but you just didn't know what you're going to get for sure. And then Grayson Thomas, the running back, coming off the ACL tear last year. And so this has sort of been a program year for them. And they're getting better as the year goes along. And I think we'll step off the bus. One of the few teams in the state who will step off the bus at East Central and think they're going to win just because of what they've done over the years. And that's a credit to them. And, it really is, I think sometimes we take for granted some of these programs that win year in and year out, and you're just kind of like, oh, New Pal doing it again. And you just kind of get used to seeing it. And, honestly, being back out there the other day, I've covered them a lot over the years, but you're out there and it's like, they don't have very many kids out. They're not a program that's like got guys just all over the place. It's a pretty small group of small team, and they've only have 10 seniors and a pretty small junior class. And you're like, how do these guys, it's like a small army, if you can survive in Kyle Ralph's weightlifting and all the stuff that they do, it's like you're you're doing something. So it's been really unique what they've done there. And they're not even a big 4-8 school. So it's been impressive, and I would give them a chance. I don't think they'll beat East Central, but even to get here and have the season they have, pretty incredible.
At Center Grove, Ben Davis, this is like a meeting of titans, and especially this is going to be like a Pac-12 game right now with these quarterbacks on this game. You've got Tyler Cherry, who is completing over 73% of his passes, 2,700 yards, 31 touchdowns. And then you've got a quarterback on the other side who is doing pretty similarly, 2,300 yards passing, 28 touchdowns, but also 341 yards rushing, 10 touchdowns. This is going to be a spectacular game. I wouldn't expect a ton of defense, but man, is the over and under going to be set at 80?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would say it'll be at least in the high 20s, that type of game. Maybe the winner gets to 30, and maybe it isn't. I don't know. It's hard to know. And I would say both defenses have played pretty well. So you give both they're both balanced teams. I would say they're both teams that obviously know how to win over time. And Center Grove has played Ben Davis pretty well, over the years. They beat them 3 years in a row in the semi-state, 19-21, I believe it was. Yeah, 19-21. They won all three and made it to state all those years, obviously. So it's and I've covered some great games between these programs, and I expect that to be the case again. The one advantage Ben Davis has, I think, that over this Center Grove team is they have really done a pretty good job stopping the run, and that's normally Center Grove's bread and butter. But this year's team also, to counter that, they've been better at throwing the ball. So you got Tyler Cherry and Noah Coy, who are a great tandem at quarterback receiver. But you also have Mark Zachary back there on the in the secondary for Ben Davis. You also, you've got guys who are veterans. This is a very veteran Ben Davis team. It was left in really Jason Simmons was the coach there, and they knew this would be a really good team. And he left for Miami of Ohio for a college job, but it's been pretty ready-made to step into a good position for Russ Mann. And like you said, their quarterback too can run. And Tyler Cherry, not much of a runner, but he can definitely sling it. But Thomas Gatkowski for Ben Davis can also, if you get pressure on him, he can step up and take off and some designed runs, but a lot of it's just him kind of scrambling and making stuff happen with his legs. So I don't know. I mean, it's to me, I think Ben Davis probably has more overall talent, not by a lot, but I think a little bit more on both sides of the ball. But I think Center Grove, what they do and they do well, that's why they win so much, because they're going to focus on what they do well, and they're going to do that really well. Normally that's running the ball. Like I said, they haven't been sensational running this year. It's been more of a passing team, but their defense has played really well throughout the tournament, especially, and even during the season. So I don't think they're going to give up a ton to Ben Davis either. So that may be, the matchup to watch is how Ben Davis moves the ball against Center Grove. If they're having success moving the ball, and tacking on touchdowns, it's they playing from behind for Center Grove, that could be problematic. But I think it's going to be great. I could see it going either way, honestly. I mean, that's not just me saying that. I think it's going to be a phenomenal game.
Absolutely, should be a phenomenal weekend. One that will keep you extremely busy, but we'll look forward to seeing the results and talking about it next week, man. Thank you so much, and we look forward to it, Kyle.
You bet. Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it.
You bet. Kyle Neddenriep joining us here from the Indy Star. Make sure you give him a follow for all your coverage on what's going on in Indiana high school sports. We're back with more after this with Rick Bozich.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Oh shoot, there's Rick. I'm ahead. Sorry, Rick. I had my head down. I don't know how long you've been
It's all
sitting
right.
there.
No worries. I got to sneeze anyway.
Oh, lovely. How are you, Mr. Richard?
I'm okay. How are you? Were you there Sunday night? I didn't see you. Were you there Sunday?
I was. I know. I was out of town. I had to go out of town for a wedding this weekend,
Okay.
which was okay. It was in Florida,
Oh, where in Florida?
Cape Coral. Cape Coral.
Was it nice?
Yeah, it was. It was warm. So yes.
Rick, can Louisville beat the third worst team in the Ken Palm tonight?
Been out there. You know it is.
Who do they play?
Coppin
Coppin
State.
Oh, Coppin State.
I
Here we go. 10 seconds.
Steakhouse, Chop Shock, Market and Table, a part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville and Evansville. Pizza, burgers, beer. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you from high atop the 18th fairway at the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios on this Wednesday. Joined now by the great one, Rick Bozich from WDRB.com. Hello, Rick. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Stayed up late watching basketball last night. Got a game to go to tonight. Seen the Hoosiers play twice. I'm ready to go. It's hoop season.
Kentucky looked pretty decent, even though they were without some guys. And because Kansas looks really good, but Kentucky looked pretty decent with the guys that they were missing.
Yeah, I mean, they've got a lot of perimeter talent for sure. Guys that can shoot, guys that can get up and down the court. I know they missed a lot of threes, but put a lot of pressure on Kansas offensively and defensively. Just didn't have an answer for Hunter Dickinson because all their big guys are either injured or ineligible, but they've got a big growth curve ahead of them. It's one of his better teams in a few years, and we'll see how he develops them.
Well, we're a lot of future Indiana opponents here. Right there's one of them, Kansas coming into Bloomington, and that happens a little bit, not that far away, actually, right. Not that long from now. Indiana fans are there's a little consternation right now, but before that happens, Indiana has a game tomorrow night against Wright State. Louisville has a game tonight against Coppin State. Both of these teams are, I hate to say it, but likely to play next Monday. Mm-hmm. And this has to be the least promoted IU of L game in the history of them ever playing. Because for one thing, nobody knows it's going to happen. And if it does happen, it means both of them got beat the day before.
Yeah, and it's not local. It's in New York City, so fans won't be able to go and watch it unless they want to spend a lot of money and go to New York for the whole weekend and stay over on Monday. Yeah, I mean, both teams, considering what was expected of them, have been a little underwhelming so far. IU played okay against Florida Gulf Coast, I thought, but gave up way too many threes and never really took control of the game. I saw Florida Gulf Coast got beat by 12 or 14 by Pitt in their next game. And then Indiana looked even shakier against Army, never taking control of that game. I mean, it was an 8-point win, but it felt like a one-possession game or more most of the game, and let that kid score 20 points who didn't score any points the game before, and really had a three-pronged attack other than Renew and Xavier Johnson and Khalil Ware. Nobody else was getting them any points. So Mike Woodson needs to make some fixes offensively. The biggest thing I see is, I mean, they're giving up 13 threes a game and they're only making 4. I mean, you could get by with that when you had Trace Jackson Davis on the team, but he's not there anymore. So they need to find a way to cut back on the threes, and they need to do a better job of incorporating the threes in the offense.
Yeah, the lack of being able to defend the three right now is not the ability to play defense. It's seems to be understanding the defense.
Right.
And they're just not out on these guys. They're not closing out. They're not getting back out. They're not responding quickly. It's like they're giving courtesy defense on that. And it's like they're so intent on protecting the post. And I'm like, man, you guys have post players. Why you better focus on everybody else? And is this something you think that they can pick up on, or are these guys, this is going to be a dangerous trend?
I think they can. It takes time. You watch them play, it's very obvious. They've got 3 guys starting who didn't really play a ton. Well, 2 even weren't even in the program last year, and 1 didn't play a lot of minutes when it counted on defense. I'm talking about Renew, Ware, and Mbako. Yeah, they got to figure it out. It's just going to come with experience and work on it in practice and do it in games. I mean, the game they got tomorrow night's not going to be an easy game. Wright State's better than either team they played. The one thing in Indiana's favor is Wright State actually played last night. They lost at home to a good Toledo team by only 1 point. So if they don't come out and play better against Wright State, they could go up to Madison Square Garden with an L. So they got to figure it out, and they got to get more off the bench. I mean, C.J. Gunn and Caleb Banks have been in the program for over a year. They need to be like contributors. And Mike Woodson, he doesn't really seem to have a lot of trust in either one of them. In both games in the second half, he went with the lineup that won the game was the 3-guard lineup of Cups, Galloway, Johnson, Renew, and Ware. And that's what he's going with. And, it's I mean, Cups is a freshman. He's figured it out. These other guys.
Now, that's what makes it scary to me is a kid that is a freshman that was not this highly rated 5-star. And boy, not only has he figured it out, what he hasn't figured out, he's trying to make up for in effort.
Right.
And that is something that I think is not being seen by some other players.
Yeah, I mean, he needs to pull him along. And I don't know who the leader of the team is. I guess it's Xavier Johnson, because that's the only player they sent into the post game on Sunday night. And he was critical of the team's practice habits. So it's his job as a leader to get other guys bought in. And he did. I saw him jump on some guys during the game for not doing the right rotations. It's on him and Galloway to get it figured out. They're the captains. They're the most experienced players in the system. They've been there for both years of Mike Woodson. And, we always say teams that are player-driven are more successful than coach-driven teams because it comes from your peers, and you feel like you don't want to let your teammates down.
And of course, Mackenzie Mbako has been a topic of discussion because he hasn't played much, because he hasn't played well very much. Mike Woodson talked about not having confidence in someone, and it's been Mackenzie Mbako, especially on the defensive end, I guess, as much as anything, which a little surprising, but he has got to get a grip quickly because he was expected. A lot of people thought he was going to be the leading scorer on this team. I thought it was going to be Khalil Ware, and Khalil Ware's he's come in and he's falling into his role, and he's got some learning to do, but he's not having as much difficulty, to me, it looks like, as Mackenzie is.
Yeah, I mean, Mbako needs to play better defense. I mean, that's why he played 2 minutes in the second half against Florida Gulf Coast. I think he played 5 in the second half against Army. You can't get blown by for layups. You can't lose shooters. You got to understand the team concept, and that's going to take him a while longer because I'm sure, Cups, his dad was a coach. I'm sure he's drilled and watched videos, and ever since he's been to IU, I'm sure he's been all in on, what do I need to do and where do I need to be. I think he views himself as the leader of the team for the next 3 years after this, and he takes it seriously. And Mbako needs to learn that, under Woodson and under any coach that wants to win, you got to play defense. You got to rebound, or you're not going to play. I'll say that Ware, I think, he's exceeded my expectations. Considering all the knocks that were against him about effort, he plays hard. I mean, he's just one of those guys that I think he looks smooth and he doesn't have that, real dynamic body language. He's kind of calm, so people kind of interpret that sometimes as like, he's not playing that hard. He plays plenty hard. He's played well in both games. He just needs time with Cliff Marshall to get stronger, because once you get in the Big Ten, as you know, a more physical league, and there's going to be guys who are going to try and push him around. He's going to be able to hold his ground at both ends of the floor.
Yeah, when we get into conference play, that's going to be a test for him. It'll be interesting to see. But way before we get to that, you've got Trey Galloway. He's looked at as this glue guy, but that's all fine and well. And he had a great game a few games back. But he has to be a consistent contributor offensively, or this team is not. That's part of the reason why they're going to 3 guards, because I don't think they're getting enough out of the guard play on this team.
Yeah, I mean, it's a guard game. You got to make the other team fear that your guards can beat the opposing team, break down the defense, and get them into rotation, or get into the lane and, get to the rim and score, or get into the lane and dump it off for a lob. They had a couple of those when it mattered, or be a guy who can throw the ball in and then, spot up on the 3-point line and make a 3. I mean, that's the problem that they have, is they don't really have if you look at Indiana's guards, they don't really have a guy that say, man, we really got to shut that guy down offensively. They don't have one. I mean, Xavier Johnson had a really good offensive game, and he did make some shots. And he made 9 out of 9 free throws, but you got to have that one dude who looks like an NBA guard, like Shafino did last year. Even though he wasn't a tremendous 3-point shooter, he was a good mid-range shooter. And as you mentioned, Galloway, you can't ever question his effort. You can't question his defense, his ability, his willingness to drive and be a glue guy. But he's just not a guy who say, give him the ball and say, let's see you go make a jump shot. He's not going to drive the ball and stop, pull up, and hit a jump shot. He's going to hit a floater. He's going to try and lay it up, but he's not going to drive and hit a jump shot.
Yeah, and they've got one more game coming up before Wright State tomorrow night, before they go to New York, and that is the last chance for them to kind of get their stuff together before they head off and face a team that we know is playing well, that we know is talented, and will be more than ready. And it's a semi-quasi home game for UConn, being so close up there. So that's going to be something else.
Well, you're right. I mean, the thing is about UConn, they won the national championship last year, so their fans are all in. They're used to going to the Madison Square Garden for the Big East tournament and playing games in the Big East, which they're back in that conference. And just the basic geography, it'll probably be, 10-1. UConn will have more fans there than Louisville, Texas, and Indiana combined.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting. So, and speaking of Louisville, if things go, if Indiana's not able to get past UConn, I do not expect Louisville to get past Texas. I'll just go ahead out and predict that. And if Indiana and Louisville play, is that going to be more interesting of a game than it should have been on paper?
Well, Louisville has been struggling since the start of the season. As you know, last year they went 4-28 and lost an exhibition game. This year, it's mostly a new team. A lot of talk about how they're going to be a lot better. They won their first exhibition game against Simmons College, which is a very low-level team. Then they lost their next exhibition game to Kentucky Wesleyan, which went out then later and lost to Western Kentucky by, I think, 20 or 24. Then they beat UMBC by 1 point in their opener last week. And
is that a TV network?
That's the team that beat Virginia in the regional the one year when Tony Bennett was a 1 seed. But alarming about that was, I think UMBC scored 93 or 92 against Louisville. In their very next game, they went home and scored 23 in the first half. And then they just lost to Chattanooga Friday night when they were down 21 with 6.5 minutes to play. They lost by 10, and Bellarmine went down to Chattanooga last night and led deep into the second half. And I think Chattanooga ended up winning by 6 or 8. I don't remember what it was. I think it was 8. But it's not good. And there's a lot of grumbling. Yeah, Bellarmine lost 72-64. Crowds are down, and they got Coppin State tonight. And as John mentioned when we were off camera, I think I didn't check it today yet, but Coppin State was number 360 out of 362 teams in the Ken Palm ranking, only 2 teams worse. And so they need to win this game, and they need to win it pretty decisively.
We'll certainly find out. Or I think John was about to.
Yeah, they are still 360. Louisville's favored
I
by
believe the only team below them, or one of the only teams, is Lemoyne, who is brand new to Division I. Right. And maybe Stonehill. Is Stonehill the other team that's below them? I could be wrong.
It's Mississippi Valley State, the team that UConn played last night, actually. What are they doing? What's UConn doing playing Mississippi Valley State? I have no idea, but they did.
It's in honor of Jerry, the receiver.
Jerry Rice.
Jerry Rice. Yeah, in honor and ode to him, I guess. That's the only way. That was the first time I discovered Mississippi Valley State, was when he was playing for them, and they were scoring like 1,000 points a game or something. Way back when. So we've got to take a break. Lots more coming up. Rick Bozich from WDRB.com is with us when we come back. The Big Ten still discovering or considering rather the future of the basketball schedule and how they're going to do this. That and lots more when we come back.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market, some teams may not even make the tournament.
May not make the Big Ten tournament?
Yeah, depending on how they go.
So
where are they going to
beginning next year? You're saying?
Yes, or well, not. Yeah, starting next year.
Are they going to put it in like Los Angeles or something?
No, I meant, well, it probably will at some point. But I mean, as far as how many teams get in, how many games they play.
Gosh, that would be terrible for TV times having it in Los Angeles. But I mean, I know you got teams out there now. You got to cater to them in some way.
Well, but you could schedule them earlier.
Yeah, but you also aren't going to cater just to your Eastern time zone teams. You're going to have to at least do something.
More so than you would think.
Yeah, definitely more regularly. But I mean, if you're having the tournament in Los Angeles, it's probably going to be based on Los Angeles time.
I don't know.
No, yeah, it would be. I don't know.
Posters. No, I'm just kidding.
How much money they end up raising in that thing yesterday, you know?
I have not seen the but they had $1 million match. I know that.
They did?
Thanks.
Anonymous? Al Schwarber?
He was for one of the football games recently.
Yeah,
they honored
the last one. Yep, the last one
was Tracy Smith. Did he come back? Is he still coaching Arizona State? Or not
no,
Arizona State.
He's Michigan.
He was not there.
Michigan.
He's a Michigan man. Can't have
Tracy,
a Michigan
no, he
man.
was at Arizona State. He went from Indiana to Arizona State.
Right, he got fired at Arizona State.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, he's at Michigan. That's a good job to get after that, because Michigan is the only. Well, who was it last year? Was it Iowa or Maryland? Somebody was really good last year.
Some of Illinois had good seasons.
Maryland. Yeah, they kicked the crap out of it. They scored like 80 runs one week, 40 of them against Indiana.
They had a guy drafted in the first round by the Cubs.
All right, here we go, guys.
Go to school. At the golf club at Eagle Point, students can play for the rest of 2023 for just $299. That's right, play as many rounds as you like for just $299. That's better than a birdie. But you don't have to be a student to play at Eagle Point. Go online to set your tee time or call 812-824-4040. The golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by the Ugly Grouper. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Wednesday. Appreciate you being with us. Rick Bozich from WDRB.com with us. Make sure you give him a follow and go there for tons of great content. The Big Ten is still looking, and this cracks me up, how all these schedules are usually made all these years in advance. Oh, well, we can't do that because that's a change the schedule. How many times in the last couple of years have we seen them change complete schedules, like the football schedule we just saw? Boom, completely change it. But I think they did it right before, and then they had to do it again. But, COVID. Well, COVID, they were able to do that. Then all of a sudden with Washington and all the other West Coast teams coming in, oh, yeah, we can do that. And now they're having to do that with basketball, but they have not decided how they're going to do that exactly yet, because there are multiple options that they are looking at, 3 different ones, as a matter of fact. John Rothstein was the first to report this. It indicates that the conference is discussing 3 options: staying at a 20-game league schedule, adding 1 game to go to 21, or adding 2 games to go at 22. There are also reported discussions of changing the amount of teams that would qualify for the Big Ten tournament. Currently, everybody gets to go, but they may say, have to have, it would create too many days.
Yeah. You talking about what, 7 or 8 day event then?
Yeah. Not only that, although there would be buys, I don't think anybody wants to be involved in something like that. You've got the NCAA tournament immediately afterwards, within days. So I would be surprised if the Big Ten tournament does not have a cap.
Yeah, I hope it does. I think
it needs to.
I think it's one way to put some value back in the regular season. You make the regular season have some significance. Otherwise, you play all these 22 games and anybody gets to go to the conference tournament anyway. What's the point of playing 22 conference games? That's one of my biggest gripes, I guess, with college basketball is, the regular season has become less and less valued every year. I think back to those year 2013 when Indiana won the Big Ten title for the first time in a while under Tom Crean. That was a big achievement, and it kind of really gets buried in the aftermath of, oh, that was the year they lost to Syracuse. All people remember you by is what you do in March, and what you do over the rest of the season is forgotten rather quickly. And if you end up, I just think if you're going to play 22 conference games, it needs to have some significance.
I agree that what is the point of having a team that has won 2 games in the conference playing in a freaking conference tournament?
Right. None of their fans are going to travel, right? I mean, none of them.
Yeah,
only players, families, and friends. That's the only people that are going to travel.
And it will make the tournament more valuable. But and it gives you team nobody's going to watch. Who's going to watch a 2-win team against whatever they would be playing another low end team because of the very beginning just to get to the point. Those are just wasted games. There's going to be no one in the stadium. There's just wasted money renting the place and all of that. So, but it will be interesting to see how that turns out. And it will be interesting to see how the Big Ten tournament grows with the addition of these new teams. You've got some new faces. That's going to be kind of a fun thing. It's I mean, every conference is adding, but this is basketball, and a lot of these got UCLA, Indiana, Michigan State, all these. So this is going to be fun to watch, I think, when it finally gets here, if the teams are playing well. And we'll get to that more as the season comes along. Indiana has to get there. They're not there quite yet, but it will certainly be a that gives you something else that you have to play for. You have to win. If you don't, you're out. But that's the point that goes directly to your point of valuing the regular season, because that the tournaments kind of took that away. Everybody says it gives these other teams a chance. No, it doesn't. When it doesn't happen, I mean, that's not going to happen, and so who cares?
I mean, they've got a chance all season to prove they belong. They shouldn't be able to just turn it around and go to some tournament and win 2 or 3 games. And you ended up, a lot of times you end up ruining the season of a more deserving team. Who knows? They might have an injury. They might have been better all during the year, and they had an injury, and then somebody can't perform in the conference tournament, then they're out, or somebody's got the flu or whatever. I mean, it's rewarding people over a longer period of time for a body of work makes more sense than rewarding them whether they can just get hot for 2 or 3 days. Now, if it's a league, the only thing I'd say is if it's a league, that has a one bid situation.
I was going to talk about one big leagues.
But otherwise, you got your chance, man.
Well,
I'd be in favor of an 8-team Big Ten tournament. I would.
Wow. Well, on the one bid, I would not. I think that they should not have tournaments, because you talk about valuing the regular season.
Right.
There's too many times where you see a team that really just wins the conference, and they get upset by somebody. They may have a player out for something, and then they're out. Right. And I'm like, wow, they got robbed. And so, but it is what it is. It's all about the dollars, man. It's all about the dollars.
Well, that's the only time all year those leagues really get a lot of TV exposure. Their conference tournament semifinals and finals are on ESPN or ESPN2, and they get paid TV, broadcast money for it, and that's how they run their league office. So that's not going to change. But I don't know. I'm in favor of making it harder.
Hey, it always makes it better. Iron sharpens iron, right?
Yeah. Like the IU football team. They've sharpened up the last couple of weeks. What chance do you give them of beating Michigan State? They got a decent chance, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, hell, they almost beat Illinois at Illinois. So I think that they should be favored personally.
Right.
The offense is playing so much better, and the defense is playing that much worse. I don't know what is happening. I know they've had injuries in the secondary, but boy, that effort against Illinois and a backup quarterback was horribly disappointing.
Well, how do you give up? You gave up more points to Illinois than you gave up to Louisville and Ohio State, 2 top 10 teams combined. How does that make sense?
It does not. It certainly does not. And hopefully they get it together, but will that make a difference at the end of the season? We'll probably talk about that in a couple of weeks. But Indiana basketball going into a game with Wright State tomorrow night.
Right.
And Mackenzie Mbako, like I said, but there's a lot of people asking about the 3-point shooting. You pointed out that Indiana is giving up or having more made than they're taking. But they don't really have that shooter. I'm like, who's the knockdown shooter? Mackenzie Mbako was supposed to be, but that hasn't worked. They're not focusing on getting that shot. Someone says that Indiana needs to prioritize it a little bit more. Well, they're not hitting the ones they're taking. So just taking more, I don't know, is going to help. They need to hit more. That's for certain.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been shown over 2 years and 2 games that it's not a high priority to Mike Woodson. Now he claims that in part because the last couple of years he had Trace Jackson Davis and Race Thompson, and inside was the strength of the team. But it's not, you can't in any way say it's, the modern type basketball where we've seen they don't play at that pace. They don't emphasize the three. They don't have the guard play, and they need to do something about that. I mean, when you look at the lineup they put on the floor, it's got three big guys on it. And most teams don't have that. And Renew is effective in the paint. Ware can come outside and shoot shots, but he's the biggest guy on the team, so he needs to play more in the paint. So Mbako is the one that has to play more like a perimeter player and show that he can make outside shots, make mid-range shots, create offense for himself, and defend on the perimeter. You're right, he's the number one guy. When you have a five-star recruit who came in, he was committed to Duke, and he was the MVP in that tournament out in Portland, and has the acclaim he has, and has publicly said he expects to be in the NBA next year. He needs to play like it.
Absolutely. Here's an unbelievable stat, and I'm assuming, Howie, you're saying this came from Zach, that since 2017, Indiana has been outscored by more than 900 points from beyond the arc.
Not surprising.
No, because about 600 come in the last three games, I think.
Yeah. I mean, who's the last really good three-point shooter they had? James Blackman?
Yep. That's it. That was under Tom Crean.
Yogi Ferrell, James Blackman, Robert Johnson was pretty good, but those are all Crean guys.
James Blackman was definitely what you call, that's his first deal. He was a 3-point shooter.
Right.
And part of that, though, I think, is how the recruiting has changed.
Right.
They're not landing these guys they're landing more athletes than they are specific role players, I think.
Right.
And specifically a guy that can knock down shots. Now, Todd, I've said this, and I'm not trying to throw Todd under the bus because I believe what he says. He says that Mackenzie Mbako is, and this is from watching him in practice, one of the best shooters Indiana's brought in since Jay Edwards.
I've heard that from a number of people who've been to practice too. And he does have a nice looking stroke. I mean, they just need to find a way to get him comfortable and productive. It's hard to make threes when you sit on the bench the entire second half. And that's what he's done.
Is it nerves? You think he's just nervous still? He's not appearing nervous, but is it still just getting accustomed to the college game?
Could be. I mean, I think the main thing is that Woodson is so doesn't tolerate defensive lack of intensity, doesn't tolerate defensive not being where you're supposed to be. And both these games have been dogfights. He couldn't afford to have guys out there who were breaking down on defense the way he did. And he did the same thing both games. He went to cups. He went with some of the subs a little bit more in the second game, but there was that stretch in the second half when Ware and Galloway and Johnson were all on the sidelines and they were still behind. And I thought he was a little bit slow actually to get those guys back in the game. And once he did, Ware had that stretch where he scored 11 straight points and the game kind of changed. But, like I said, Wright State is a better team than they've played so far. The thing, I just checked their two box scores though. They don't shoot. I think they've shot like 15 or 16 threes in both of their first two games. So they're not a team that intends to shoot the three. So it'll be interesting to watch if they think Indiana's defense defending the three is bad and they take a lot more shots from there than they normally do. Then we'll know that that's what everybody expects. And that'll be interesting to find out.
Yeah, it will be. It would be a telling sign. It'd also be interesting to see what Mackenzie Mbako does this week as far as intensity. Another thing, though, that Mike Woodson has made note of is they're not pushing the ball. They're lazy getting the ball up the court, lack of transition, lack of fast break points.
Right.
And I'm wondering, okay, why? They've been in practice for 5 months. It's not like they just got on campus yesterday. That's, people keep saying, well, it's only the second game. I don't care. They've been together for 5 months. Why
why are they not doing though? If that's what they were working on, if that's what is being told, why is it not happening? That's what
Great
I don't
question.
understand.
Part of it is, I think, they've been conditioned to playing. That's not the way they've been conditioned to playing since those guys have been there, because Trace and Race have been around. They've been used to coming it down and playing half court sets because they had the best offensive player in the Big Ten on their team, and he's not there anymore. They got to get that out of their mind. They don't have Trace Jackson Davis anymore, who was just a tremendous security blanket for them on offense. How many times, when things were going bad, they could find a way to post him up or run a pick and roll and get him a lob, and he would bail them out. And they don't have that anymore. So it's a variety. I mean, CJ Gunn is another one. We talk about Mbako. CJ Gunn was recruited to come in and be a three-point shooter. That was his calling card. And, it hadn't happened yet. It didn't happen last year, and it hadn't happened this season. He does. I think he's a fine defensive player. But in terms of getting his offense going, it hadn't happened. What is he? I'm looking at his numbers right now. Has he even made a three this year? No, 0 for 1. I mean, that's not what they were expecting.
No, and he's not. He hasn't looked comfortable in the.
He hasn't even scored. He hadn't scored.
No, not even a free throw.
No, 0 for 3 on twos, 0 for 1 on threes, no free throws attempted.
Yeah, that's he just doesn't look comfortable yet. But it's also, this is another player the same defensively. It's I think Woodson's dissatisfaction is as much on the defensive side as the shooting side. But I think some of CJ's shots that he's taken have not been the shot that Mike would like to see. But hopefully that's something that for him he grows into. But this team is going to have to gel together quickly because they're about to get punched in the mouth by their schedule. It gets real tough real fast. Once it becomes a UConn, there's another team after that, and
Auburn and Kansas.
Exactly, and you've got 2 Big Ten conference games mixed in there as well.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see if it gets any better tomorrow night. Some more guys need to contribute. Can't just be a 3 or 4 man team. Got to get some other guys going, get them some confidence. They need to get ahead of somebody and sort of like step on them. They haven't done that in either game. I guess it's good from the standpoint they've learned how to play in close games, but I'll tell you what, I'll tell you who is going to go up and down the court. That's UConn. They're going to go up and down the court on Sunday afternoon at a very fast pace. And they are going to be aggressive, and they are going to shoot threes, and they got a 7-footer who will give Khalil Ware everything he wanted, and I think his last name is Klingon. And they got Caravan, who was a guy that IU recruited, who's sort of a stretch 4. They got pros on that team, and they're confident because they won the national championship last year, and that will be a challenge. If Indiana doesn't play better, they're going to get run out of the gym.
Well, and this could be either a good thing or bad thing for Indiana. This may be the wake-up call defensively of how you have to play, of how you have to move. And if you don't, getting run out of the gym is the likely scenario. So, yeah, hopefully this is the one that wakes them up, and it'll be very interesting. What's up next for you? We got a game tonight?
Coppin State at Louisville tonight. Yeah, we'll see if the Cards can get their second win before they head to New York. They're on, I think, who plays first on Sunday, Indiana or Texas and Louisville? I think it's Indiana, right?
On Sunday, I believe
UConn's first.
Indiana UConn first.
Whatever.
Yes. It is at 1:00 on Sunday.
Okay. Yeah. That's next for me. No football. I'll be watching football this weekend. Not going to Miami. Louisville has a chance. If Louisville can beat Miami on Saturday, or if North Carolina or Virginia Tech loses, any of those 3 things happen, Louisville secures a spot in the ACC championship game, which would be against Florida State in 2 weeks, and makes Jeff Brom the first coach, I believe, to go to conference championship games in 2 different leagues in back-to-back seasons.
1 minute.
Wow. Very, very, very cool. Well, we'll look forward to following that. Rick Bozich from WDRB.com. Make sure you're giving him a follow. Rick, thank you, sir, man. We'll look forward to it. We'll see you in the Big Apple.
All right. Have a great week.
You bet. You as well. Rick Bozich joining us here. Big thanks to Kyle Neddenriep as well from the Indy Star. Most importantly, thanks to you guys. Without you, we have no reason to be here. John, the producer, for keeping us between the white lines. We're back tomorrow to do this again, of course. And we'll have a lineup, of course. Stephen Bardo joins us. Tyler Smith from thehoosier.com. Chris Denary. Whatever else we can get scared up. So much. Thanks to you guys so much. We appreciate you. Until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.